This is Robin Wilson, host of The Education Connection, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcast, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Artificial intelligence has certainly taken the world of education by storm in the last couple of years. From personalized learning platforms to AI-powered tutoring tools, there's no doubt that AI is reshaping the way we teach and the way our students learn. But when we think about AI in the classroom, we often picture older students. At least I do, because I'm a high school teacher. We normally think of high school students using AI to to do research, or even college students leveraging it for writing or brainstorming. But what about our youngest learners? That's what we're going to talk about today with Dan Gallagher on episode 260 of the House of Ed Tech. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of Ed Tech. My name is Chris Nessie. The House of Ed Tech launched in 2014, giving me the opportunity to speak with teachers, leaders, and creators so you can more effectively integrate technology, strengthen your pedagogy, and have more confidence in your classroom and school so you can make an impact. Get involved with the podcast by visiting my website, chrisnessie.com. Using technology isn't difficult, and this is where it begins. This is the House of Ed Tech. Welcome, welcome, welcome. March is leaving like a lamb. April showers are coming to us. And I'm excited to be back here making another episode of House of Ed Tech just for you. That's right. You and me right now, we're the only ones who are a part of this episode. So tune out all the other noise. It's just you and me, and pretty soon it's going to be Dan Gallagher because he is my guest on today's episode. And I'm very excited to have put this episode together and talk about artificial intelligence in the elementary school classroom. Now, for some people, the idea of AI in an elementary classroom might raise concerns. How can young students use AI effectively? Is it safe? Does it replace the teacher? These are all legitimate questions, and they're exactly the kind of discussions that we need to be having, which is why I wanted to bring Dan on to the show today. But here's the reality. Artificial intelligence isn't just for the advanced student or the tech-savvy teenager. AI has the potential to enhance learning at all grade levels, including elementary school. How? Well, by making education more engaging, more accessible, and more personalized. Imagine a first grader using AI to help them generate ideas for a creative story, or a group of third graders interacting with a language model to practice reading comprehension. AI can be a powerful tool to support early literacy, learning numbers, and even problem-solving skills. But it's not just about handing kids an AI tool and saying, off you go. We shouldn't do that with anybody. What it is about is guiding their learning experiences using AI as a complement rather than a replacement for traditional teaching. And that's where you and I and educators like Dan come in. AI in elementary education isn't about automation. It's about augmentation. It's about giving teachers more ways to teach and reach their students, and more ways to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of young learners. Of course, any new technology, there's going to be challenges. How do we make AI understandable for young minds? How do we ensure responsible use? And what role should parents play in this evolving AI world? These are the questions that I'll be diving into in today's episode with my guest, Dan Gallagher. He has real-world experience as an EdTech coach, and he's using and coaching students and teachers at the elementary level. Dan is going to share what AI use actually looks like in younger grades, how teachers can introduce AI in age-appropriate ways, and how we can foster creativity while maintaining ethical and responsible use. Plus, he'll share some practical AI activities that you can take straight into your classroom. AI isn't just the future, it's the present. And the sooner we start thinking about how to introduce it responsibly in elementary education, the better we can prepare our students for a world where AI is going to be an everyday tool. So, enough from me. Let's jump into my conversation. Here's my interview with Dan Gallagher. Dan Gallagher, longtime listener, fan of the podcast, friend in real life, who I met in Pennsylvania before I even started doing the podcast, is now here on the House of EdTech. Dan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for taking time on a Saturday morning to come into the House of EdTech and talk a little artificial intelligence in the elementary classroom. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm glad to share my experiences. Hopefully it's worthwhile for someone out there to hear some ideas of how we've used it with elementary students.
Let's get right into this. You are the expert, as I said before I even hit record. So from your point of view with what you do, what does AI use look like in the elementary classroom? Because I don't have elementary experience of significance.
The way it looks is, imagine having a cloning device for the teacher. You know, they've got a class of sometimes 25, maybe even more students, all with diverse needs and attentions and personalities. And the AI can be able to kind of replicate that teacher so that they can interact with every student. And that will then give the teacher the feedback that they need to figure out who do they need to target and meet with one-on-one to give that more personalized attention. And the great thing is, a lot of the different AI platforms that are out there that are great to use with students have also built-in accessibilities. So I've been able to use AI in a kindergarten classroom. Minimal introduction to the students. Here's where you can click to have it read to you. Here's where you can click to talk to it, and give those students a chance to interact on a very focused prompt that the teacher set up, and kind of in that walled garden where the students are protected.
So you hinted at it a little bit. Let's start with kindergarten and let's maybe work our way through the early elementary years, and maybe then we get into upper elementary. So kindergarten, first grade, what are you seeing in terms of how students are interacting with it?
I actually need to backtrack to more talking about the school itself.
Okay.
So I was in a K-4 school. And my building administrators, my principal and our instructional supervisor, they initiated the program of Genius Hour. And so as we were rolling Genius Hour out over the years that I was there, we started hearing feedback from teachers that one of the areas that they struggled with supporting students was in picking the topic. Because what the teachers were trying to do is they would try to have a one-on-one conference with each student to help guide them through, not just saying, oh, my topic's going to be dinosaurs. That's just too broad. They need to dig deeper. They need to narrow that focus down. And that was just taking so much time from the teacher. I kind of came up with a crazy idea, pitched it to my administrators. Thankfully, through the relationship we have, they jumped on board with, rightful hesitation. So we had to test it out together for them to see what this could do. And then they helped me roll it out to the staff. So the idea was that and this was just kind of in the early stages of AI coming out there. So I started using a platform called Poe. I had hesitation with Poe because there were some areas of it that I wasn't too happy with, but it would allow me to create a chat bot. And so I developed a prompt that would help the students find out what they're interested in and kind of guide them down into a specific topic, and then pivot the conversation into how are they going to then showcase the learning? What's that end project going to be at the end? My biggest hesitation with Poe is to be able to use Poe, you have to have an account, but you can't have students have accounts. So what we would have to do is we would have to create stations in the classroom of a couple Chromebooks with the teacher logged into their PO account so that the students could then interact. We introduced that to the faculty at a faculty meeting. We had teachers come up and interact, and it was interesting to start seeing what some of the teachers' interests were. We had one teacher that, started talking about how they enjoy cooking, and they were going to showcase with some developed recipes. They were going to create their own recipe book. So they started to get that buy-in. And while we were showing them, we showed the accessibility features so that, everyone felt comfortable. And the first classroom that embraced it and reached out to me was a kindergarten class. And so I went in and showed the students where they would click. We had 4 Chromebooks set up in the back, and we would cycle students through and be able to interact. I wasn't too thrilled with that because, one-on-one conference with a teacher. Now we've got only 4 Chromebooks. So that's 4 students at a time. It's still not everyone interacting all together. So I did a little more research, and that's when I saw School AI came on board and became available. And there was a platform where the students didn't need to log in. They were able to get a code from the teacher. The teacher had a dashboard where they could see all the conversations. School AI had AI built into it for the teacher that it would alert the teacher of, Susie is extremely excited about dance. Billy's dragging his feet and not giving any type of answers. So it really gave that targeted feedback that the teacher could then see those students. But we could now have the entire class, because every student in the class was one-to-one. This was post-COVID, one-to-one with devices. They could all interact with our School AI bot. To get student buy-in, I named the bot Waffles. Our school mascot was the Wildcat. And years ago, the students all voted and named the Wildcat Waffles. So I had a picture of Waffles as the profile picture on our bot. It was named Waffles. It would interact with the students, calling them Wildcats. And we would then start hearing students saying, "Oh my gosh, I talked to Waffles today." And they would then go home and tell parents. And we then started to think about, we should probably clue the parents in on what's going on. So I met at a PTO meeting. The principal introduced me to the PTO. We talked about it. I brought out Waffles, had the parents interacting with it so that they started understanding, when my child came home and said they talked with Waffles today, it wasn't the actual mascot in the classroom. It was this AI. And they started to see how wonderful it was. And they were saying how they started using AI in their own workplaces, and the fact that their children are now interacting with it. This was amazing.
Dan, let me ask you this real quick. So when you get into that kindergarten classroom or any classroom you go into, and you're going to talk to students, real young children, and you're going to have them use AI, are you explicitly explaining to these students age appropriately what artificial intelligence is? Or from their perspective, are they just given access to another thing on the computer? Can you speak to that?
I usually went in and I would have some type of introductory lesson activity to kind of show the students how AI has been around for a long time. So sometimes I would come in and we would do something like Google Auto Draw, where they were seeing how AI was guessing what they were trying to draw. So they had that interaction there. They could see, okay, so it's the computer interacting with me to come up with a thought together. And then, with the older students, when we got into 3rd and 4th grade, I would talk a little more about how artificial intelligence has been around in, how many times have you gone on a driving trip and your parents have put on Waze or Google Maps, any type of GPS directions, it's out there scouring, what data it's getting in, and it's trying to figure out the best route possible. And sometimes based upon your settings, the route might be to avoid tolled roads and it might take a little longer, or the setting might be to get to the place as quickly as possible. And, having that set up kind of gave them that background knowledge of what AI can do, with how it's a tool to be used with them.
That makes perfect sense. So I'm glad it's being explained to them. It would be weird if it wasn't.
Yes.
What are some tips? Because not every school, as you and I both know, has somebody like you in your role. Some schools don't have that. What tips do you have for an elementary school teacher on how to start that conversation if they've got to do it themselves? They've got an interest in doing this with their kids, and they've got the buy-in and the support of administration. What can they do to talk about this with their students if they don't have someone like you?
Well, the first thing you got to do is make sure that whatever AI tool that they're going to have the students interacting with is appropriate for those students. They got to check to make sure that the privacy is allowing students of that age level to be able to interact with. I've now actually left that other district where I was doing this with the elementary school. I'm in a different district, and we now kind of have it structured where we have Gemini, fortunately, turned on for the high school students because that's what age appropriate for them. We've been recommending either Magic School or School AI for elementary and middle school students because we've done the background. We've looked at the privacy policy. We looked at terms of service. We've done the research on what are they doing with the data. Do students need logins or not? So all of that should be done first before ever introducing anything to the students. Then look at how BrainPop has videos on artificial intelligence. That might be appropriate for that age level of students. There are activities that Google has started putting out on how to introduce AI to students. There are articles, I believe Nearpod, and I would assume Pear Deck would have activities in their library on AI for students. So anything like that that can start to introduce the students to what is this large language model? What does that mean? A lot of students think that the computer is thinking for itself. And to try to change that mindset of it's not, it's taking the collective knowledge of the world that's on the internet and it's predicting what the next word would be in the text that it's giving back to you.
One of the analogies that I've used with my high school students is it's like a word calculator if you're using generative text AI.
That's a perfect way of describing
it. And they get that.
And I would even say, going into stuff like Canva and showing them some of the AI features that are built in Canva where you can describe the type of picture you want, and then it gives you 4 choices. And it kind of helps you determine, maybe I wasn't detailed enough in my description because if I'm not getting what I want back. And I think that's the next step in the introduction to students is showing them how, just like in a writing, we need to have descriptive sentences. Well, your prompt needs to have more details to be able to get you back the output you're looking for.
That's what I'm always telling my students, because I do integrate some AI stuff with the 9th grade world history students, that details matter, right? I just came off a project related to imperialism where our big unit of study, we kind of looked at imperialism in a very broad sense and how it affected large groups of people. And the project I had them work on was to create a story, historical fiction based on primary sources, and create a person that could have existed. So they used Canva to do some digital books, and they used the generative AI to describe their person, this main character, to try and get, whether it was somebody who would have lived in India or China or South Africa. And then we had conversations about the details, right? And, sometimes there's such a thing as too many details and it takes a long time to generate the image. So sometimes we've got to cut back on details, but to your point, details matter.
Yes.
Let's see. Something else, Dan, with the idea of how do you prepare your students? As the teacher, go to ChatGPT, go to Poe, which by the way, I do love Poe as well. I use it on the regular. Ask AI to help you plan a lesson, or how can I explain what a large language model can do, and help me explain it to first graders. Help me design an assignment. Use the AI to help you explain what it can do.
I use that as well with teachers. Not only introducing it to students, but we had to introduce it to teachers and get the teachers to buy into it. And some of the teachers were very hesitant because at the time we were hearing the news articles on the nightly news about AI is going to destroy the world. It's the rise up of the machines. And we had teachers that were very hesitant, and some felt very anxious when we first started saying at the faculty meeting that we wanted to start having students use AI. But several of those teachers, once they saw the students, and this goes back to my philosophy when it comes to integrating technology anywhere, once they see it in action and the teacher experiences it for themselves, they can then start wrapping their minds around how could this be used with my students. So once some of these teachers were seeing the students interacting with WafflesBot, I then had teachers coming to me going, could it help with, my 2nd grade project of an all about book? It's an alphabet book. The student picks a letter and they have to then have multiple words in that book about that letter. Yes, we could create a bot that would help the student do that. I had another teacher, the third grade writing process, students are still learning to be writers, and to expect them to be great peer editors in the writing process, that's kind of a drawback. Could AI be another step in the writing process? And so I worked with that teacher, and what we did was we rechanged her writing process where they did the brainstorming, their first draft, they did their own self-editing, then they saw a peer editor, then they took those, they revised, they then met with the AI editor who gave feedback. They then made their revisions there before they had their final step of meeting with the teacher. And so that teacher worked with me to create a bot that the students could copy and paste their writing into it. And we set up certain safeguards, that walled garden approach, where the AI wasn't rewriting the writing for the student, but it was highlighting some different areas that we also targeted in that prompt were with what the teacher's goals were for that unit of writing to kind of improve their writing. And so as teachers started to see the students interacting with it, they started seeing the possibilities and they started coming up with different ways that they could start utilizing it. I had a fourth grade teacher start asking, could this help them with, doing persuasive writing? Could they kind of have a debate, have someone that they could interact with and kind of pitch their proposal and their rationale and their different reasons why, and then see if the AI could poke holes in it and see if the student could then revise and possibly come up with ways to counter argument whatever their proposal was. So the teachers really started to see that once they saw it in action for themselves that first time.
Dan, you almost want to, in your role, or like me, I'm that guy in my school and people come and ask questions. You almost want to be like Wile E. Coyote. And if somebody starts, hey, I got a question about AI, just hold it to the side and says yes. Because really, there's not much it can't do, and it's getting better every minute, right?
Yes.
Right now, in this moment in time, it's the worst it's going to be, and I've said that in a number of episodes. So to all you tech people out there, just get your little yes sign and just, yes, AI can do it. Yep. And maybe we'll have to figure out a future episode of, hey, let's assemble all the things it can't do, which is different than what it shouldn't do. But that's a story for another day. A few minutes ago, you mentioned the rise of the machines. We're going to take a quick time out. And when we come back after this break, we are going to talk about creativity, concerns and ethical use, and some more practical applications. As Arnold would say, we'll be back. Let's talk about a fun and creative way to enhance your classroom and bring a smile to your students' faces. Sticky Brand. Sticky Brand makes it super easy to create custom stickers for any occasion. Whether it's celebrating student achievements, decorating your classroom, or personalizing supplies, stickers are the perfect way to add a little flair to your teaching. And with Sticky Brand, you can design exactly what you need in no time at all. Here's how you can use Sticky Brand in your classroom. Reward your students with custom Great Job or Homework Hero stickers to recognize their hard work. Add your own personality to your classroom with stickers that match your theme or subject, like historical figures for history class or STEM icons for science. Get stickers for your school club, your sports teams, or extracurricular programs. Your students and the community will love them. You could also send home stickers with your school's logo or special event reminders to keep families connected. And the best part? Sticky Brand makes ordering completely hassle-free. Just upload your design, choose your size and shape, and they'll ship your stickers fast. No complicated steps, no waiting around. And here's an exclusive deal for listeners of the House of Ed Tech. When you visit chrisnessy.com/stickers, you'll get $5 off your first order of $60 or more. So whether you're stocking up for the entire school year or just a special event, this is the perfect time to give Sticky Brand a try. Custom stickers are a small investment that can make a big impact in your classroom. Again, head to chrisnessy.com/stickers to get started today. That's chrisnessy.com/stickers, because a little stickiness can go a long way. And now, back to the show. Dan, let's talk about creativity. I mentioned earlier in this conversation about something my students were doing, writing historical fiction, but also integrating AI. And they weren't using AI to do any of the writing. They did it more for the art and the graphic stuff. But what are you seeing in terms of elementary school students, which is the focus of this conversation? What are you seeing in terms of student creativity and also now integrating artificial intelligence?
I can give you a great example. I was working in a second grade class. They were learning about idioms. The final project was going to be create a poster that they could put out in the hall about an idiom. They were going to record their voice and have a QR code so that, parents could scan it and hear the student saying the idiom. But we had some students that started literally breaking down almost into tears when it came to having to draw the poster, having to make that image of ants in your pants. We had some students that had no idea where to begin drawing, or we had some students who were just getting frustrated with themselves. It doesn't look the way I want. So I said, why don't we pivot to Canva? Why don't we show them Canva as a way to give them ideas, give them inspiration? Not actually just, we don't have to fully use that photo, but maybe even give that as a choice, as an option. If the student wants to use the Canva photo that was generated, or they could use that to generate ideas for their own personal drawing, but kind of use the AI to assist them. And so we started showing those students how they could go on, they could put in what they were looking for. Canva would then generate images. And what's great about Canva for education, it's safe images. So it wasn't giving us anything that would be inappropriate for the students to be able to see. So, for instance, that one, ants in my pants, generated an image with someone who was standing in the middle of a ball field and had all these ants crawling all over his pants. And that kind of helped the student, first it, gave the student a laugh because it was a funny thing to see, but it kind of then gave the student an idea of, oh, all right, I could do this and I could have some ants crawling into the pants. And another image that was generated out of the 4 possibilities was an oversized ant wearing pants. And the student was like, but that doesn't kind of go with the idiom. And it led to a great conversation of exactly. When you just put in a simple sentence of ants in pants or ants in my pants, the AI is trying to interpret what that could possibly mean. And there's a lot of different possibilities. So if we can give it some more information than just that idiom, give it some more description of what you would like to see, we can see what it will then generate and come up with.
Yeah, it goes back to the details that matter. And it also goes to your point, and everybody who's using AI doesn't think, AI doesn't understand. It's all ones and zeros, and it doesn't know what an idiom is. I mean, if you ask it, it'll do that word calculation and give you a definition.
It'll give you the definition of it, but could it come up with its own unique idiom that no one's ever heard of? Not one that's going to be something you'd want to use.
I don't know. I might have to try that now. I love pushing it. I hope we teach the kids to push it too. Well, appropriately.
Not so much at the elementary level, but as we worked up, I've worked with some middle school teachers, and yes, then we can start, because I think at that point, the students are more not utilizing it just as a resource, a step in a writing process or something like that. Now they're starting to see it as that. I've seen the term in different literature as a thinking partner. Then you can start kind of pushing each other. The thinking partner can start challenging your writing and kind of pushing you to get better at it. And you can kind of push the AI to start getting a little more creative. Give me some more ideas, more suggestions than what you first generated.
Yeah. And when you were telling that story about the idiom posters, I thought you were going to tell me that the problem was the kids didn't like the sound of their own voices when they had to record them, because, we're podcasting right now. But also to speak to some AI, going back to that project I just recently did with my students, a lot of them don't like the sound of their own voice and they're embarrassed to speak out loud, even though I tell them, and I will ask them this, has anybody ever told you in your whole life, hey, you shouldn't talk, you have a bad voice? They still get shy. So what I had them do with this project was I gave them the option to, if they scripted out their story, feed it into a voice generator. And I'll be honest, stories always sound better when the voice is British. Which is a little ironic when you're talking about imperialism because the British caused so many problems, but that's an episode of a history podcast that we're not doing right now. But I was able to empower my students and give them a different voice. And a lot of their stories had voice, whereas, they were longer. I mean, sometimes I'll do a project like this and, the students will record into Canva or now in Google Slides. And, it's a 35-second project because they speak as fast as they can and they want to just get it done. But the AI doesn't rush through it. They give it their script. They refine what they want it to say. And I had projects that were 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, and we watched the stories, listened to them. That aspect of AI was also really helpful. And yeah, just thought I'd throw that in there too. And you have those apps in Canva. So there are some voice generation tools that you can use in Canva as well.
I have not checked those out. I haven't played with those.
I got to describe this now because this is audio. In the left side, you go where like there's elements and everything, and there's apps. Click the apps button and you can search for voiceover. You can search for AI, and there's a number of different tools that for free, you get so many credits or characters and you can put simple sentences in. So you can pick the voice. You get some usage, but it's a place to start. And then certainly with high school kids, I had kids going into on their phones, going into TikTok, recording, changing the voice, and then downloading. So they were app smashing. But again, that was some higher level stuff. Maybe you could do that in middle school too, but it all depends. On an earlier episode back in 2024, I had Tom Mullaney on the podcast, and we talked all about a lot of the concerns with generative AI in general. We're having a conversation about using it with elementary school students and really empowering them to use it. And you talked about talking about it with administrators, teachers, and parents. So I'm sure you've had to have some challenging conversations about concerns and what some of the fears might be.
Oh, of course.
Can you please speak to that? And what are some of the concerns that were shared with you?
So the first one, when I first pitched the idea to my principal and building instructional supervisor about using AI for Genius Hour, there was that hesitation of, are you sure this is going to be appropriate for these students? I mean, we've heard stories of AI hallucinating, making things up. I said, well, depending on the prompt you put in there and depending on the walled garden that you set up, you can eliminate those hallucinations. You can limit what the AI will give back. Then there was the concerns of, what if a student's being inappropriate? Like, how's the AI going to handle that? I said, well, what we're going to do is I've got at the time it was Poe, I've got the bot set up. I'm going to go on one computer. I'm going to ask my instructional supervisor, go on another computer. My principal, you're going to be on the account as well, and you're going to be in as the teacher. So you'll be able to see the chat conversation. I'm going to come up with every single dirty word a sailor can come up with, and I'm going to be typing that in, and I'm going to ask the instructional supervisor, I want you to be the most difficult student possible. Say, I don't know, I don't want to do this, and let's see what the AI is going to do.
So you put it through its paces.
Exactly. And when the principal started to see that as I'm typing in inappropriate words and it's giving me warnings that that's not appropriate for school, that's not appropriate for an elementary student, that they're going to have to tell the teacher, the principal is like, okay, all right. And I'm seeing those flags on my on the teacher dashboard. All right. And when the instructional supervisor is dragging their feet and saying, I don't want to do this, where a human is only going to have so much patience, the AI has unlimited patience. That's what it's programmed to do. And so the AI is going to keep working with that student and trying to come at it with different avenues. What do you like to do? Try to find that hook to get the student's buy-in, to try to get the student to give something other than, I don't know. And it's unlimited because AI has that patience. It's not going to get frustrated. It doesn't have emotions like a human would, and eventually just want to, I don't want to say give up, but step away.
Yeah. Great example that I can share with that. I was talking with a math teacher in my high school, and he was curious about how AI could help him as a math teacher. So I was showing him Magic School and how he could set up a chatbot for students and how he could feed it a prompt about a particular math topic. And he's like, all right, I'm going to pretend to be, that difficult student or who's not getting it. And he was able to have it demonstrated to him what you just said, this endless patience, which can sometimes be is always frustrating as a teacher when you feel like you've explained it 9 ways to the sun, whatever, and you can't come up with the 10th way to explain it or break it down. AI will do that. It will keep working with you. Yes, Dan, I can continue to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So the patience is powerful.
To build on top of that, teachers only know so much. And so if you have a student that has...
Wait, you mean we don't know everything?
Not yet. I'm waiting for that, integrated chip in the back of the brain that's going to then connect me to the internet and I'll have all that knowledge. But, you have that one student that has that one unique interest. And they're that student that says, why do I need to know this? And that teacher might not know that interest at all and might not be able to find that connection of how learning the Pythagorean theorem is going to connect with this one little interest. But the AI can. The AI knows about that interest and can find a connection that will give that reason as to why this is important. And that, I think, is also powerful, especially at the higher levels when you start getting those students that are saying, why do I need to know this?
Were there any other concerns from administration? Let's stick with school for now.
Thankfully, no. With administration, I built up enough of a relationship with them over the years that they valued my opinion. When I came to them with something, they knew that I already did the work behind the scenes to make sure that this would be appropriate and successful for the students. So thankfully, no. But when we had that PTO meeting,
I was going to say, how did the parents react?
I did have some parents come up afterwards asking me questions about, especially the biggest one was privacy. Is what my student's saying building the AI? Is it going to be used to train it? And I was able to reassure them, and I was able to bring up the terms of service and privacy policy to show them that when the students are interacting, there are no personally identifiable information being collected. The prompt is set up that it's not asking the student to give them their full name or anything like that. The AI, the way I had it written was, it was calling the students wildcats. So it wasn't even looking for a name to, personalize and interact. Everyone was a wildcat. And showing them that the data being inputted into the platform is not being used to train the model. That kind of gave them those reassurances that, the privacy concerns of AI. Then there was the question of, is this something my child can go home and access at home? No, because with, we were using at that point school AI. With that platform, we can pause that conversation. You can only get into it as a student with a code. So if they don't have a code that they can put in at home, there's not a way to get back into talking with Waffles.
Like with anything we teach students, and let's talk about the young learners, which is the focus again. If we're not teaching them and exposing them to this in school, it's like anything else. They will at some point find it, and left to their own devices through not being supervised or not having the controlled environment that is a classroom that is monitored, and you have adult intervention, whether it's you in your role or the teacher, they're going to find AI. It's out there, right? Let's take the opportunity in school, and everything you've shared so far is more than age appropriate in terms of how they're using it, and they're just getting a little bit of exposure. And whether they realize it or not, they are getting that AI literacy, if I believe that's a term, AI digital literacy, where they're exposed to it and using it responsibly in school. And sure, like with anything, at some point they will try something that maybe isn't the greatest, but at least we as a school and the world of education, we can try to build that foundation where hopefully they go out and they use their newfound powers for good.
To add on to that, one other area of safeguard that schools provide that the average household probably doesn't even think about, the web filtering. When that student is in the classroom, they are protected not only by the supervision of the adults and everything like that, but they also are protected with the web filtering set up by the district. Whereas when they go home, I don't think the average household is going to have the same level of protection network-wise at home for that child to be going on their personal device and having access to everything. And I think that's another area to kind of bring attention to with the families is when they're in school and we're introducing them to something, it's something that they are able to access because we already deemed it appropriate for them, that it's something that's going to be safe for them. But when they go home, if they just type in AI, they're going to see everything that's out there. And hopefully as a parent, you're building in protections at home to kind of prevent that from happening.
Have you created, or in these conversations you've had at the PTO meetings, are there resources that you directed parents to or things that they should consider? Any literature, websites, anything like that?
I always reference Common Sense Media. That's always a great resource as a parent to go to find out information. And I've also referenced, because there are so many different internet providers, I might not know the intricacies of all of them. I said it's always great to reach out to your internet provider to talk with them about what kind of safeguards you can have in place at home.
And of course, just kind of being aware of what your kid's doing on a device is also helpful.
Mm-hmm. Just the basic, don't let your child take their device up to their room at night. Are you sure you know what they're doing on that device at that point?
It's 10 p.m. Is your child playing with AI? Any other words of wisdom based on your experience that would be valuable for teachers, administrators, or the parent who's listening?
Don't be afraid of AI. And if you have a pessimistic mindset, Pandora's box has been opened and it's not going to be closed. AI is not going away. It's going to be something that our children are going to grow up with for the rest of their life. And it's better if we are proactive in introducing it, working with it, showing how it can be a downfall. You're going to have those teachers that say their students just going to let the AI do all the work. Show them what the pitfalls are of that. Sometimes you're not getting the best results and the information's not going to be vetted and accurate. And then the biggest area is it's a tool there to help you. And even if you can find that one little area, maybe it's the notion of, if I'm a parent or if I'm a teacher, I'm going home at night, I'm tired, I've had a long work day, I've got these 7 ingredients in my cabinet. What am I making for dinner? The AI is going to be able to help you. And if that's the one use that you can find that's positive, you now have a positive interaction with AI, and that's going to start to change your mindset. And you'll start to then see and take those gradual steps of how else can this be useful. And if you can start finding use in it, I bet you can then start thinking very easily, how can my student or my child find use in this?
All right. Before we say goodbye, Dan, one, I want to say thank you again for taking time on a Saturday morning to be here for this conversation. I greatly appreciate it, and I know the listener will as well. You mentioned a number of tools throughout this conversation, but here at the end, if you could rattle off, what are your favorite tools that are being used in the elementary classroom? For the teacher, I would say I've been very happy with the results I get with Gemini. It's been helpful for me writing Google Apps scripts because I want an automated timestamp in my spreadsheet to know when it was last edited. I used Gemini to help me write the Google Apps script to put that in there. So as a tool for a teacher, I turn to Gemini. Depending on the age level, elementary especially, I go back and forth between Magic School and School AI. School AI was the first elementary appropriate one I used, so I kind of always default to that. But I love Magic School with the variety of different tools that they've already got pre-customated for you, that you can make tweaks to it and revise it and kind of remix it into fit your exact needs. But they already have that foundation started for you. And then just for, being able to showcase how AI can be helpful, Canva, the image generators, the background removers, those type of tools that are built in that utilize AI right in there. I find that to be a very useful place as well for education. All right. Dan Gallagher has enlightened us on how we can use AI at the elementary level. If you go to the show notes at chrisnessy.com/260, we'll have all of the links and resources and obviously the highlights of our conversation. I'll have all of Dan's contact information there. Dan, are people allowed to reach out and email you and DM you and continue to ask questions?
By all means.
Excellent. All right, Dan, thank you for being here on the House of Ed Tech. And, I do apologize that it took 260 episodes to get you on here. You've been on the SmackDown before. I'm glad we had this conversation, and you are a wealth of knowledge here in the state of New Jersey, because New Jersey is where all the great education happens. So we'll bring you back.
I couldn't agree more with that. New Jersey has the best educators I've ever met.
We'll see you soon, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great conversation with Dan. I hope this episode has given you some valuable insights into how AI can be used effectively in the elementary school classroom. Whether you're an educator already experimenting with AI in your classroom, or you're someone who's just starting to explore its possibilities, one thing is clear: AI isn't just for older students. It's got the potential to engage, support, and empower our young learners. But we've got to use it thoughtfully, and we've got to use it responsibly. And now I want to hear from you. How do you feel about AI in elementary classrooms? Have you tried using AI tools with your younger students? What challenges or successes have you experienced? Let's keep this conversation going. You can share your thoughts with me on Blue Sky. I am at Mr. Nessie. You can also send me a message on Instagram, where I am at House of Ed Tech. You can also leave a comment on the show notes page. Go out to chrisnessie.com/260, leave a comment there, or you can send an email, feedback@chrisnessie.com. And if you found this episode valuable, make sure you share it with another educator who might be curious about AI's role in elementary education. The more we share ideas, the better we can shape the future of learning. And now, let's put a bow on this episode. I want to thank you, as always, for tuning into this episode of the House of Ed Tech. Thank you for making this podcast a part of your anytime, anywhere professional learning. Know this: I want to hear from you. I just said it, I'm going to repeat myself. Your feedback, your ideas, and your questions make this podcast better. This episode was born out of Dan reaching out to me and wanting to talk about AI in the elementary classroom. And of course, I said yes, not because I knew him, but because I thought to myself, I haven't created an episode that really touched on this particular topic. So thank you, Dan, for reaching out. Now, if you have thoughts about today's episode or questions about ed tech in general, let me know. Send me an email, feedback@chrisnessie.com, or leave a voicemail at chrisnessie.com/voicemail. Your input and your thoughts could be featured on a future episode, and I'd love to dive into the topics that matter most to you. All the links and resources for this episode can be found at chrisnessie.com/260. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you click subscribe or follow so you don't miss any future episodes. And if this episode did bring you value, share it with another teacher and help grow this community. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, consider becoming an awesome supporter. Go to chrisnessie.com/awesome. A heartfelt thanks to my current awesome supporters: Leo Calbush, Brian Carpenter, Aaron Cummings, Jeff Herb, Peggy George, and Matt Miller. Your generosity keeps the show going strong. Next time on the House of Ed Tech, it'll be episode 261, and I will be bringing you the 2025 House of Ed Tech Final Four. That episode will be dropping on April 13th, 2025. And real quick here at the end of the episode, you heard a new bumper at the beginning of this episode for Robin Wilson's podcast, and you need to go check it out. Go to edupodcastnetwork.com to check out Robin Wilson's podcast, The Education Connection. It's a great podcast, and I included the bumper in this episode, 1, because it's new to the Education Podcast Network, and 2, her podcast is all about education, and she has a lot of experience working with our young elementary school learners. So check it out. In the meantime, remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try.